Emerging Trends, Games and Tech. It's episode number 49. I'm Bernie Goldbach, and I'm joined by Claire Davis. She's an animator who's cognified. If you stick with us, you'll learn more things about how animation is making things smarter, and cognification is making animated objects smarter, how cognification affects lockdown, and where you might find stuff like cognification in education in the year 2050. So Claire, you, on a PowerPoint deck I've seen, you describe yourself as an AI-ready animator. Where are you online that somebody can see you and maybe say, yeah, that's the story? What's your URL online?
Well, my primary place to find my work is on ArtStation. So okay. My ArtStation URL is ClaireArt, CLAIIREART @artstation.com. Okay. But you can also find me on social media, Instagram under the same name, and Twitter under Claire Davis, CLAIIREDAVIS, which is probably where I'm most active.
Great. I'm going to put that in show notes. If you're listening to this thing, you'll see, you swipe up, you'll see those URLs, and you can go click in and see a lot of clever art. Claire's been an animator on the campus in Clodmel for 4 years and soon to move on. You've got a film, finally your film, what's it called?
Yeah, it's called Swipe, which is spelled SW//PE. It's a sci-fi love story that I'm working on with another animator in my class.
Super. I hope I can grab a keyframe from that and pop it into the flow of this, because people are interested in seeing, what you guys are doing, because it's very clever. You've taken this concept called cognification, which was written in the book The Inevitable by Kevin Kelly. Can you define what cognification means? Because people listening to this are thinking, wait a minute, animators, cognification, what the heck's that? So what is it? What's the concept of cognification?
Well, cognification primarily refers to artificial intelligence. It's the process of making objects that are in our everyday lives smarter by applying artificial intelligence and other software inside of them.
Cool. And so theoretically then, you would have seen some of this cognification inside of animation. How could an animator use cognification to either make elements of the film smarter or elements of the animation process smarter?
I think cognification has definitely affected animation a lot in recent years. My own film is being animated using 2D rigs, which involves the software filling in the blanks between the poses of the different characters, which is definitely an element of cognification that has really boomed in the last few years. You see a lot of it, especially in television animation, as opposed to in the old days where everything had to be drawn frame by frame. There's smarter ways now of achieving similar looks and similar results.
Okay, so this is better than tweening. You're saying the objects themselves have been changed by the software.
Yes.
Okay, clever. I know it's going to make people, if I know people who get upset just by having their stuff reframed or reimagined, and it's not my stuff, someone's changed it. The musicians particularly don't necessarily like all their backbeats being put in place as others. Michael Stipe, just listen to Michael Stipe, he doesn't like his music, even though he's getting a royalty from it being used in Trump's campaigns right now. So I can see where an animator is saying, I made that was my character until you cognified it. And they get quite alarmed.
Yeah.
We're going through a space of time right now in history. It's like a social isolation. Stuff's like we're locked down, and theoretically there's some cognification at play. I mean, cognification it's a thing that's happening, and it's happening now around you. So how has cognification affected the lockdown that you're currently experiencing?
Well, I can't say that it's affected me hugely, or that even the lockdown has affected my workflow hugely due to me doing most of my work from home anyway. But it can definitely help with things like scheduling and maintaining and organizing yourself. Even just Siri telling me when I have something due is definitely helpful. When you're not going into college every day and meeting people and talking about things, it's good to kind of keep track of everything like that.
So Siri, so you're suggesting to me Siri actually makes you a little more comfortable, but keep you on track. Would that be accurate?
Exactly. Setting my alarms for me and tracking my Moodle notifications for me. That's
very good.
What I need her for.
Yeah.
In these times.
As a matter of interest to me, then, would you agree that if you have something that's calendar based by tasks, so you can see what tasks have to be done by dates, that's maybe relieves some stress for you? Would you think that's true? Because I'm looking at a way of doing this in the future.
Yeah, I would say that's true.
Okay. So just as a matter of technical interest, what would you have changed with regard to this module? Because I'm interested, if I have to deliver it electronically and remotely for most of the time, how would you ramp up some introductory videos or samples at the start? Or, is it, the foundation elements saying, or here are your tasks, here's the deadlines, and here's the credit, the academic credit you get for each of them. Is that adequate enough?
Yeah, I think so. I think though, like when a module is being delivered online, I think it's even more important for like the tasks you're given to be like so clear and defined, because you're not there in class every week talking about it. So it can be hard to keep track of exactly what you're meant to do in each module. I found that across the board, really, especially in fourth year, because most of your modules are very broad and you just have one big project, which can be hard to track and maintain. I think delivering online, it might be more helpful to break everything down into smaller tasks for people to manage.
It's interesting because you're describing this as a task-based thinker as opposed to as a visual thinker. I mean, if somebody applied an analysis here saying, put you on the couch, let's say, because she's very task-oriented. So,
absolutely.
So give me this, because you would know people who are very visual. What foundation elements, what structural elements need to be put in place to create a better roadmap for someone who's visual first and logical second? So I really do want to know that. What foundation elements? Should I draw a flowchart with arrows and boxes, or what? Because you are closer to the visual thinker than I am.
I don't know if that's necessarily true. I definitely am more of a logical, task-based thinker, so it's hard for me to put myself in those shoes. But as you said, from knowing people who are a lot more visual, I think that would definitely be helpful. People enjoy their mind maps and their graphs and all that kind of stuff. I prefer a nice list or a nice calendar, but each to their own. So I think it's has to be kind of talked about on an individual basis as well. Everybody learns in their own way.
Yeah, but you see, I'm trying to make sure to lose anybody along the way. So thanks for that. That's really good stuff. What applications besides Siri are you using? Anything else that's cognified right now? So Siri, calendar, tasks, Moodle calendar. Is there some other special place that you're using and say, ooh, it's cognified. I'm happy about that now that I understand that it is cognified. In your daily life, is there something that is happening in a positive way that shows cognification at work?
There's nothing in my daily life that's hugely cognified to the point of calling it an artificial intelligence, but of course the various softwares that you'd be using in to produce animation and other content it's small elements of cognification to make your life easier, as you mentioned before, knowing to back up your work after a certain amount of time has elapsed, and knowing if something is out of place, or something files aren't linked properly to each other, say in After Effects or Premiere, which is definitely helpful day to day, especially when managing such a big project as the thesis film. Like, as the compositor and editor, there's a lot of files to keep track of, so little elements that Adobe has to help me with that are definitely helpful in my daily life.
How about, like, what's since you're on it a lot, what elements of Instagram do you sense are cognified in a positive way? I'll just give you a sidebar on mine. To me, I deliberately go after stuff. Like, I'm doing some big digs, literally, with shovels, chisels, and stuff. I'm trying to like and comment on stuff that relates to landscaping and garden furniture. And so now those ads are coming up, but not only on Instagram, they're coming up with other places. So to me, that's like, maybe you want to, I don't know if it's necessarily cognified, it's cognified my life, but I've made some I've made my intentions known. Please give me stupid ads about wheelbarrows, and I'm getting them. So does that happen? Like, the stuff you watch, the flow you watch on Instagram, have you actively gone after changing the way something like Instagram thinks? Or is it natural codification, something that you just accept? Occasionally get ads for slippers and maybe you don't want them, but they just
Yeah.
show up, like Wish shows up all the time. But
Hmm.
have you actively done something to affect this cognificational inside of Instagram?
I've actually kind of done my best to actively make it not do that. I always try and turn off my targeted ads in every app I'm on. I don't like
Okay.
it knowing too much about me.
Okay.
Um,
All
so
right.
I try and turn it off where I can, but stuff always slips through the cracks. And
Okay.
you
Tell me
know,
how you're doing that, because this is important. If you want to remove distraction, and like what's happening to me is I've fallen into the cesspit of listening to people I graduated from high school with talking about the current situation in America. It's pretty simple. I happen to believe that people cough on me, I might get sick. In America,
yeah,
I have friends that say it's our right to walk on the beach as close as we want. It's our ocean. Thinking, oh God. So I'm putting in political stuff, and I realize, oh my God, a year from now, I'm going to go back and delete all those posts because I'm getting kind of political about my attitude. I still don't want them to cough
mm.
on me if I were to go back to the States where I grew up. So what are you doing actively to making sure that that noise level is reduced? The ad, what do you turn off ad notification? Are you doing anything else?
Well, apart from having an ad block installed on the PC, then on
Mm,
mobile, it's just I go into my settings and check my privacy policies and that just to make sure
yeah,
that I have targeted ads turned off like anywhere I can.
yeah.
But they always have a way. There's always something in the terms and conditions somewhere that lets them still get to you, tracking your data and everything. But
Yeah.
it kind of is what it is. It's something you have to take with social media.
Mm. Have you ever thought about like paying for a service where there's no ad profile to it? Like,
Um, I can't say I have really because I'll be honest, social media isn't important enough to me to consider paying for anything. I've never
okay,
paid for any premium version of any social media before, and I don't really plan to. But I
yeah.
understand why people who are very concerned with privacy would definitely be interested in something like that.
I'll share something after the fact with a service I've run into that they say, look, we're not going to sell profiles or click streams to anybody, but you're going to pay us like $3 a month to use our
Yeah.
service. So if you can
Hmm.
imagine this, who's doing the film with you? It's you plus,
Darren.
okay, Darren. So if you plus Darren, we're talking about character development and you were side by side, not necessarily with your faces, but with like storyboards or with characters. And somebody watching that could hear your voice with your part of the character development, your part of the storyboard happening, and Darren's as well. And you could save that and embed it into a blog or a website that says, here's week one, as we're talking about the content of the story of week two. That's something that's a service I've stepped into because I'm really interested in like comparing. We've got I think it's either a 18th or 19th century bunker in our back garden, if you can imagine this. So it's like a refrigerator. If you go into it right now during the day, you can see your breath. Now
Mm.
there's no deterioration inside. It's just really amazing. So, but I'm trying to find out how old it is, and I'm talking to an archaeologist on another screen, uh, and like we got into this really deep conversation about Cormac Chapel in the Rock of Cashel because they were trying to dehumidify it and raise the plaster from centuries ago and look at the paints that were being used and the colors and all that. So I mean, you can read a rock, literally the Rock of Cashel, and you can read this limestone structure I have, but to do it side by side is quite interesting. And there's, like I said, you have to pay. I have to pay $3 a month to use that. But it's an interesting story as it's starting to unfold as we discover how old is this structure really. It's not on any map of County Tipperary. It's not on the grounds map of where it sits in someone else's property. It's right against ours, and we're exploring it, and it's just amazing. Anyway, the
Yeah.
point is, it may come to a time when you say, look, all right now, especially since it's, because you can make that stuff private, especially since it's a new film we're going to pitch to Pixar or to some studio, but I want to work collaboratively with somebody in Korea or some other country, a team. You may want to have something you're paying for so somebody else doesn't steal the archive,
Mm.
whatever. I'm just thinking, I admire what you're doing, and like it's important to maintain some control over what you're spending, because especially with iOS, it's really easy to get into a
Yeah.
program that you don't want. But I think you ought to back up your iCloud. You know, I think you
Mm.
ought to have a few things that you pay for, but you're getting something as a result, you know, that you can hold on to. What do you hope to experience now in the next, say, 5 years, now that you recognize cognification and you're sitting on the back of a BSc in digital animation? And where do you want to go with that, or what do you want to do?
Really just seeing AI and other software, especially animation software, as that's what relates to me. Just get smarter and smarter, be able to make sounder predictions in terms of, you know, backing up your files, and just better and better tweening and rigging and different ways to assist the process, speed it up, and allow content creators to make all the more content all the cheaper. I think that's definitely the way things have been going and will continue to go in the next 5 years. And it's hard to know exactly what software will look like in that time, but hopefully it will just be making the process easier and easier as time goes on, and more accessible to more people as well.
So you move forward to 2050. What do you think education space for animators is going to look like then? Because you're suggesting to me that maybe they'll know already the automated features that happen. Like, to me, it'd be lovely to know I can open a project and it would know where on the internet to go to grab the project files from my collaborators. I mean, but what do you think? Can you give me an idea where you think in 2050?
Well, when the technology becomes all the easier to use and more accessible, then the more and more time you have to focus on the fundamentals, which will never ever change. No matter how automated things become, you need to know your animation fundamentals and your drawing fundamentals to achieve anything in the animation field. So I think as things become more and more accessible, then it'll just give all the more time to focus on the hard stuff, the stuff that can't be cheated with technology. So that will definitely, hopefully, be an element of it.
Okay. What would you go back to before you started in third level? What was cognification like then? Because you're using smart software processes natively. But before you started, I don't know if you were playing with any kind of animation programs, or, you know, if you even, I'm sure you probably wouldn't have never encountered that word.
No, absolutely not.
Then. Well, like knowing what you know about what it means now. Back in 2015, Kevin Kelly was talking about it. What's the closest to cognification you would have gone or come to in 2015?
I mean, I was working on digital art, but it was all Photoshop based, and definitely less animated and less cognified than it would be now after 4 years of this course. In 2015, I was doing my leaving cert, followed by a PLC, which was traditional art. It was a fine art course, so cognification didn't really play a role at all then when you're painting oil on canvas, you know. So coming here and really learning the new technology definitely had a huge impact on how cognification affects my life. Before then, it was a very small part.
Do you think you and Darren will paint? Would you do an oil on canvas, a swipe, just as a throwaway?
Maybe, as a way of exploring the concepts in a different medium. That might be a nice idea. But I haven't touched my oils in a good few years, so who knows how that would go.
Yeah, I would love to see. I mean, it's easy you can print. You do print jobs. You can do a print job with canvas. There's not oil on canvas. It's like an inkjet.
Yeah.
But I think it's always interesting to almost go to the pixelated version of somebody's work, because I mean you're sharpening an image so that it's the tweening and the HD or UHD effect of when it plays back is perfect. But to go backwards with that, actually show or maybe artifacts or remnants or poor shadowing, I think it's always interesting. I mean, it gives me another perspective, you know?
Yeah.
If you're going to go forward then in terms of using or expecting this software interface, this new realm of cognification to exist, do you have any, I want to know, how would you prepare for what should be a comfortable place where you're working in an environment that's smart, artificial intelligence is there, a software process is there, a workflow is there. how do you plan to prepare to enter that realm? Because I honestly think your preparation to this level is really strong. Can you see other considerations or gaps in your preparation that you may want to work on the next, say, 6 months to a year?
I think all you can do really is just keeping up with the latest trends, keeping an eye on the news, seeing what's happening in the technological space that affects you, and how that might affect your job in the future, and just keeping an open mind, exploring new technologies, and not being stuck in what you know. Definitely always like looking and seeing what's out there and practicing with new trends that emerge, and just making sure
Okay.
you're on top of things. It's the most that you can do, because it's hard to know exactly where things will go.
Well, where are you looking now to keep up with all this? This is important to me. Where are you looking, and what are you allowing to come into your attention space to see this stuff?
Just always keeping everything updated, keeping an eye on what on jobs and what the latest studios are using, and how I might be able to use it, practicing with new softwares when I get the chance, in my limited spare time while working on my fourth year. And yeah, just making sure that I'm on top of what is needed for me when I graduate.
Okay. Would you consider somehow making it across when all these social restrictions remove themselves, to making it into a big event like Annecy, to actually
Yeah.
see some of these trends? Before Toon Boom was on campus, they called it US Animation, US Animation, they called it. And then they changed the name to Toon Boom. But I remember standing in a big tent in Annecy and listening to these Canadian guys describe their program. This was done back in 1998. And the world was just then changing from macromedia director, macromedia authorware to something that was, allow you to vectorize things and move it across the stage and change a camera angle. And I could just see the animators at that event saying, what? They had their production line all set up, and now this would radically change the workflow, accelerate it. But I mean, the point is that sometimes these industrial events where you have people whose brands you wouldn't even know, or software you couldn't even imagine, or they're saying, here's how this works, and I mean, to me, I'm just imagining a situation where you could put an object that you create, like a 3D object, into a space, and then letting the cameras in that space rearrange things. Okay, so anyway, Claire, stuff I heard you say was pretty interesting to me. If I was going to do a takeaway and say, if you too want to be as successful as Claire Art, you would, use cognification to maybe guide you in a list-based, calendar-oriented fashion to get results, that you would look for ways of identifying and then leveraging artificial intelligence in software, and you do your best to discover trends as they exist and to follow them, especially in the industry or with the studios that provide the greatest interest. Would that be pretty accurate?
That sounds about right. Yeah, that sums it up.
So 5 years from now, I'll ask you the same thing. How's that going?
Yeah, we'll
see.
God knows what the world will look like then.
Yeah, well, I'm thinking, I mean, like, you can go backwards 5 years with, say, students at Dunleary or Ballyfermot and watch. I mean, like, I'm sure someone like Paul Young from Cartoon Saloon, he can look back to the mid-90s, radical changes that have existed since then. I walked through his Kilkenny studios when everything was basically blue tack and storyboards on the wall.
Yeah.
And then it rained one day and really messed up a bunch of storyboards. So radically different today.
Absolutely.
How their studio automates things and backs it up and has 2 or 3 cross checks for all the activities. So anyway, Claire, I do appreciate you coming online. I'm going to save this to people who want to follow it. Emerging Trends, Games, and Tech is the name of the podcast. It's part of a program that we have from the Clonmel Digital Campus. You can find a lot of the crosstalk that's going on there by following the hashtag Clonmel Digital. There's a backing track for the episodes I play. It's by Andre Louis. He's ONJ Music on Patreon. This has been an episode of Emerging Trends from Claire Davis and me, Bernie Gobach. I appreciate you listening. Bye for now.